Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the DeFranco family and the University of Montana School of Music, I want to thank you for joining us this morning for celebrating the life of one of the greatest musicians of our time, Buddy DeFranco. First, let's all acknowledge Owen Ross, a UM student, part of Jazz Band 1, who gave us this lovely prelude music this morning as we all walked in. We all know of Buddy's amazing technique as a clarinetist and his consummate musicianship, but here at UM, we also celebrate Buddy's commitment to jazz education, whether inspiring the likes of Eddie Daniels or captivating an aspiring group of college students with his stories and his playing. You see, Buddy grasped that as large as his presence was as an innovative jazz musician, and it was prodigious, he also had a calling and a responsibility to pass on that knowledge of this great art form to the next generation. And here at UM, we feel privileged to be involved in carrying on that legacy. During today's celebration, I will offer some testimonials by colleagues and friends of Buddy's who were not able to join us this morning, but were moved to write us. So I'm going to begin with Terry Gibbs. Terry writes, "I think that there hasn't been a clarinetist since 1943 that hasn't been influenced by Buddy, and even tried to play like him. In my opinion, the three greatest stylists to ever play the clarinet were Benny Goodman, Artie Shaw, and Buddy DeFranco. Besides Buddy being that great, he was one of the nicest people I have ever known. I was honored to have played with Buddy for 20 years as co-leaders and loved him as a brother." This time I'd like to invite the president of the University of Montana, Royce Engstrom, to come up here and give you some reflections on what Buddy has meant to the University of Montana.
Thank you, Stephen. Good morning. What a privilege and an honor it is for Mary and I to be a part of this celebration of Buddy DeFranco's gift to the University of Montana. Thank you all for coming out this morning and for the contributions that you've made in so many ways to this music program and this college and to our university. It's just a pleasure to be a part of this today. You know, I came to campus a little over 7 years ago now, and at the time, Shirley Howell was the dean of the College of Visual and Performing Arts. You all remember Shirley? So I don't think it was more than about 2 days being on campus. Shirley had me over here in the college, showing me around and all the performance venues and getting to meet people. And she said right away, now one of the things you need to get on your calendar in the spring is the Buddy DeFranco Jazz Festival. And you know, I didn't know, honestly, much about jazz music at that time, but I did know the name Buddy DeFranco, and I thought, you mean we have a celebration in honor of Buddy DeFranco? And she said, no, Buddy is here. He will be here, and you have to come and see him. And so that first year we went and watched as Lance Lloyd conducted the event that night, and Buddy came out, and it just blew me away that here this legend, this great, was a part of our community in such an intimate way. And then when he played with the students, our students had the opportunity to play with Buddy. That was a moving experience for me to see that. Since then, of course, Lance has retired, and Rob Capper now has taken over as our jazz instructor and head of the Jazz Festival. And Rob, where are you? Is he out there? Well, he's doing a fantastic job. I know he's in the back there. So admire, Rob, what you've done carrying on this legend of this great event for the University of Montana. Truly one of our signature events. You know, at the University of Montana, we take tremendous pride in what we call student engagement. The opportunity for our students of all levels, undergraduate, graduate students, to interact with professionals and interact with the direction that they're going to take in their lives. This is beyond the classroom experience that we pride ourselves in. Our students have the opportunity to rub shoulders with tremendous people. And I don't think anybody does that better than the College of Visual and Performing Arts and this Jazz Festival. Last night, to see our students and those high school students as well get the opportunity to play with these greats, the people that we'll hear from here this morning again. What a tremendous experience, and it will probably be the formative experience of those students' lives, their musical lives anyway. And so I want to say thank you to Rob and Lance and Stephen, all of you who are leaders, Maxine, in this great endeavor that gives our students such a life-changing opportunity, such a formative opportunity. Last night when the saxophonists got up there and were able to play with Eddie and Ron, trading solos and fitting in like they had played together for years, it was just amazing to me. And so I'm so grateful for that opportunity. Joyce, it's been such a privilege to get to know you and to have you a part of our university community. I can't quite express how much it means to us to have somebody, Joyce, like yourself and Buddy, adopt the University of Montana really in such an important way, to share your lives with us. We are so grateful that Buddy gave us the years that he was able to do that. And again, we are privileged and we are a better university because of the work that you and Buddy have done and the contributions that you have made and the gifts that you continue to make to us by your presence here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Royce. The great clarinetist, Paquito de Rivera, sent a tribute to Buddy, and I'd like to share that with you. As a young kid, the first time I heard that Buddy DeFranco's big band rendition of Out of Nowhere, I felt like I was dreaming or something. Because for me, in those days, only in a dream, a normal person would be able to play bebop clarinet, as if Charlie Parker would have switched instruments. Ever since that time, Buddy has been such an inspiration to so many clarinetists of various generations. Now I'm going to introduce another great clarinetist who was influenced by Buddy's work, Ron Odrich. Ron, appropriately, will be playing Friends with Brett Edstrom on the piano and John Hamar on bass.
So just friends. I have to say a few words. Let me start off by saying that I thought I was going to be one of the guys who said I've known Buddy the longest, but I found out that somebody in the room knows Buddy longer than I do. It's not Joyce. But in the early Tommy Dorsey days, there was a group of 4 singers, 4 sisters, the Clark sisters, and they were the Sentimentalists. And I'd like you to recognize and put our hands together for Miss Ann Clark, who is one of the 4 sisters, who is here today, and she knows Buddy from the time that she was with Tommy Dorsey in 1943. Of course, we were all 2 years old then. Ann Clark. Stand up, Ann. And her daughter Kay is here with her, and so we greet her also. I'm really honored to be here. It means an awful lot to me personally because I was 2 years old then too, just a couple of years after that, and I got to know Buddy. And I think the best way for me to talk about Buddy, since he's so significant to me, first of all, to get this out of my mouth, is that this is the way I met Buddy. I was a kid and I was brought up in a family where my father was a doubler. That means he was playing more than one instrument. He was a studio musician, principally a cellist, and so I was a cellist as a kid. And I remember when I first met Buddy, it had to do with that because I was attracted to the clarinet sound. This is a long time ago. And I heard the Rhapsody in Blue glisten, so I picked up my father's clarinet unbeknownst to him, and I started to play it. I didn't know the names of the notes on the instrument, actually. I was a cellist as a kid. And then I heard this metronome all-star recording, Buddy DeFranco, and he played a chorus on Perdido, and I flipped out. I just loved it. I never was influenced by Benny Goodman or Artie Shaw, actually. So I came at this in a very pure way. And when I heard that chorus, I just grabbed the clarinet and I just wore the acetate right through the cardboard, and I kept on playing it until I learned it. And that's all I would do. I would come home from school and I'd walk around the house playing Perdido, Buddy DeFranco's Perdido. And so my father came home one day and kind of caught me with the clarinet and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm playing this chorus I love." He said, "You sound just like a guy who was a guest at the radio show that I play, one of the radio shows, and he's doing what you're doing." He said, you sound a lot like him." So I was fascinated, and my father then spoke with Buddy DeFranco at one of the radio shows, and he talked about me, and I went down to the Click Club shortly thereafter, and Click Club was a club on Broadway in Manhattan, which soon became Birdland. And there was Buddy with George Shearing, and unfortunately they never recorded. They had separate contracts with different days, but it was phenomenal. And then I went backstage and introduced myself. And I introduced myself kind of in a funny way because he knew I was coming. And I said, of course, he blew me away. I mean, he was phenomenal playing. And I went back there and I said, "Mr. DeFranco, you're fantastic." I was laudatory, appropriately. And then I said, as only a naive kid could say to him, "I'm kind of disappointed." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I thought I was going to be the first bebop clarinetist." So just perfectly the way Buddy was for the rest of his life with almost everybody. He was so kind and gentle. And I was a kid with naive fantasy life there. And he said, "Oh, don't be silly." He said, "There's plenty of room for another bebop clarinetist, and I'll help you if you like." And that started it. And we became, every time he was in New York, I got to listen to him, play with him, get lessons from him. And this happened to me last night while I was playing. I'm sorry, I didn't expect this. But
don't be sorry, you're Italian.
I didn't hear that. What was that? I had to cry? No, I'm not going to do that. I've got to gather myself together. Anyway, Buddy became my hero, actually. He came out to the house. We had dinner with us one Sunday. It was an Italian family. We had a great time together. And Buddy became really my hero. He became my mentor and my clarinet teacher. And Actually, he became the person who was probably the most influential in my life as a model, as a role model, because he was a kind, gentle, generous, loving guy. And so I'm always going to remember him and love him dearly. And he was meant an awful lot to me. So we're going to miss him. And I didn't expect to be this maudlin, but you know, what the hell? He was very significant for me. But thank you for your kind attention this morning. We're going to play a tune. Oh, don't read into the title of this tune. It's just a lovely tune, and I like playing it, and Buddy liked it, and it's called Old Folks.
Thank you, Ron. Your music and your tears are a wonderful tribute to Buddy's humanity and to music. That's what music's about being an expressive person. And so this morning, we want it to be about laughter, tears, about memories, about the past, the present, and the future. I'd like to invite Lance Boyd to come up and say a few words. I always like to think of Lance as the man who brought jazz to Montana. Before Lance, there was no jazz. And we all owe Lance a great deal for that. And of course, Lance, I'm sure will regale us a little bit about how he met Buddy and how he helped bring Buddy to our campus and enrich all of our lives. Lance.
Well, I won't try to take credit for bringing jazz to Montana, because in fact, there was really jazz happening all over the state, but it just wasn't very visible at the time. People like Chuck, for example, Chuck Lords, was performing in Missoula and already setting a wonderful standard for what jazz can be. So I thank you for giving me credit, Steve, but I can't really take full credit for that. I would like, last night when I was making my brief comments to the audience, I mentioned that the festival started, the Buddy DeFranco Festival started in 2000 and went for a period of 12 years. But in fact, the whole thing really started 2 years before that. In 1998, Buddy was one of the two artists that I hired to come out and perform as one of our featured artists on the festival. And the other one, who was also here this year, Paul McKee, played on the second night of the festival. So we'd already gotten acquainted at that point, and it was also at that point, following the concert that evening, that Joyce and Mike Stockton, their friend from Whitefish, came up to me after the concert and asked if we'd want to have a long-term association with Buddy and use his name to put on the festival. And, you know, I mean, of course, here's a legendary artist, someone who the history books were already writing up as one of the great giants in the world of jazz. And, you know, of course we wanted to have an association, but we weren't able to engage just yet in that regard because there were a number of things we had to take care of through the university, through the legal system in order to associate on a permanent basis with Buddy. So we did that in the next year, and in 2000 he did join us, and for 12 years we had a wonderful, wonderful relationship with him. I mean, he brought so much to our campus. He brought an artistry that raised the level of the festival. It raised the standard that our students were trying to achieve in their playing. It just inspired all of us to work harder to get better at what we were trying to do. He brought an integrity. I mean, the man was a giant, and he had already established that reputation long before he came to Missoula. And so he brought that to our campus, and we all enjoyed in sharing in his fame that he brought to us. And I think another thing that he made my job easier, actually, in fact, because when I would call the Paquito de Rivera and say, I'm calling on behalf of the Buddy DeFranco Jazz Festival, that immediately got their attention. Now, if I had called and said, I'm calling on behalf of the University of Montana Jazz Festival, that probably wouldn't have quite the same impact. But in fact, when I mentioned his name, when his name was mentioned, it immediately gave us credibility, gave the festival credibility, and made it much more attractive to those world-class artists we were able to bring in year after year, and largely because of Buddy. So those 12 years that we spent with him were probably the best 12 years, the most productive 12 years, and the 12 years of the most growth in the program and the festival, and the 43 years that I spent at the university. So we have to thank him so much for what he gave us, and to thank him for the legacy that he leaves behind. I would like to share with you one other aspect on a very personal level that he provided for me, and that is in the last 2 or 3 years, when he was experiencing declining health. I and a few others, probably Joyce certainly, knew that when he was on stage, when he was teetering back and forth, when he was perspiring profusely and struggling to even be there, he was picking up the clarinet and playing at a level that was amazing. I mean, he was able to play toe-to-toe with these world-class artists who were, sharing the stage with him. I mean, the courage that it took to do that, to do what he loved to do, was a tremendous inspiration to me, and I will take that lesson with me to the rest of my life. Thank you, Buddy.
Thank you, Lance. Now I'd like to invite to say a few words Rob Tapper, our Director of Jazz Studies here, and who Lance passed the torch to. So appropriately now, Rob will say a few words.
Good morning. It's really a pleasure to be here and be a part of this. Anyone that's in whatever professional field you involve yourself with, you always have your heroes, and you always have the people you want to try to be like. And I had known the name Buddy DeFranco. I knew he was a part of the history of jazz before I got to the University of Montana. But since I've been here, discovering, reading through his biography, it's such a wonderful book, and realizing, I said it last night, he has literally played with everyone who has been involved with the history of jazz, from Art Tatum all the way through Robin Eubanks a few years back. And it's really amazing. And to think about the literally thousands, maybe even approaching millions of people he's impacted on this planet is astounding. It's really astounding. And my only regret is I didn't have an opportunity to meet him. Everyone and anyone who's responded to our emails and phone calls, not only the music part we understood he considered himself, didn't consider himself a genius, but definitely wanted to do something different on the instrument. Everyone understood that. But to understand what he brought to the world and gave to the world as a leader, someone like Lance said, had integrity, the values he had, what he brought to the table. And hopefully those are the things that we can pass off to the young musicians that are in the university, in the community, the high school, middle school kids that visit our campus and are impacted by our visits to their schools. And hopefully we can bring all of that integrity, and those young people then become the leaders. And there is going to be the one or two that pop out and are going to be the next Buddy DeFranco, going to be the next Eddie Daniels, the next Ron Odrich. They're out there, and hopefully the people at the university our faculty and our students can help that pathway. And my only regret is I didn't have an opportunity to meet him. It would have been a real pleasure, but having the connection and getting an opportunity to meet Joyce and be with Joyce a little bit over the last few days has been wonderful, because there is that connection to greatness. Also the opportunity, I don't know Barb Kuster very well, haven't even living in the same town, but being able to put this all together with her and get to know her has been really wonderful. And it's been a great experience for me. If anyone is a Homeland fan, Mandy Patinkin, actor, musician, in one of the quotes in the show, he says, little things, as you get older, little things become more important. And if I can put a twist on that, as you get older, everything becomes more important, and people become more important. And in realizing the importance of someone like Buddy on the world, literally the world, not just Montana, not just Missoula, but the world, is a very strong statement. Clipper Anderson couldn't be here. He'd played with Buddy for years, a graduate of the University of Montana, a mainstay in the Seattle jazz scene. He sent a quote. One of the things about Buddy I look forward to every year was what I called the switch. We would have a brief rehearsal with the guest artists at 1 o'clock on the day of the concerts. They would consist mainly of picking tunes, putting them in set order, quick run through, maybe for beginnings, endings, solo order. In short, not a lot of playing for the guest artist who had not played with Buddy. What I really looked forward to on the evening set was watching the reactions of the guest artist the moment Buddy picked up his clarinet and played. Buddy had that magical switch when he hit the stage, and it never failed to light a fire under the artist, the rhythm section, and including the audience alike. I marveled at his ability to not only stand toe-to-toe in all musical respects with the artist, but also to listen, compliment, and if he chose, reflect their style. Thank you, Buddy, for all the inspiration you've given me over the years, and wherever you are. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, sing. Sing, Buddy, sing. That's from Clipper. I would be remiss in not mentioning the fact that when I found out about the University of Montana and the jazz program, and I met Lance, I would say probably now, it's been about 8 or 9 years ago, at a solo and ensemble festival, I would tell the story, the full story, but I can't do it publicly. It's funny. But anyway, I had a chance to sit down with him over a couple beers and just talk, and at that moment, things happened for a reason, and I knew I wanted to be a part of what happened here, and I'm so glad I am. And from the administration to the community to all of you sitting out there, to the connection with Joyce, to getting a chance to meet Ron, to having wonderful artists like Brent and John visit our campus throughout the year. This is a really special place, and a lot of that has to do with Buddy DeFranco. So, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. I want to share a wonderful tribute here from Tom Rainier. In adapting the complexities of the modern jazz movement of the 1940s to the clarinet, Buddy DeFranco established a personal and original style of playing improvised music. It was a conceptual approach that embodied the traditions and contributions of players before him, including Benny Goodman and Artie Shaw, as well as assimilating and recasting the new language being established by his contemporaries of the time, most notably Charlie Parker. In doing so, Buddy accomplished the most prized goal of the true artist and original, an original and identifiable style and conception of playing. One of the kindest, most caring and loving people I've had the good fortune to know. As we celebrate his memory, let us continue to be inspired by his music and his great humanity. That's from Tom Rainier. We'd like to continue with a video presentation. Those of you who were at the concert last night saw the wonderful presentation by Tom Stagg. This is by Tom Stagg as well, one of our graduates here at the University of Montana in the Media Arts program. And it will be accompanied by our wonderful trio here, Ron and Brent and John, and they're going to play But Beautiful. beautiful, isn't it? At this time, I'd like to invite our next musicians onto the stage, and I'll read a quote while that happens. There, I'm going to invite them. Come on out, guys. Get ready. We'll have them get ready, and while they do that, I'd like to read a tribute sent to us by Beppe D'Amato. Buddy was, better to say, is a true gentleman. As a person, he was at least as great a musician, and the musician part was incredible. When back in the late 1940s, the world thought that Benny and Artie had played whatever it was possible to play on the clarinet, here Buddy comes and points up the way to modern jazz on clarinet. His music was new, fresh, not only swing, not only bebop, not only cool, but it was Buddy's own music. No need to remember that his mastery still untouched, incredible tone quality directly from his heart, a giant, some would say a genius. When I met him in Zurich, Switzerland in 1986, I was 27. Dado Moroni, the great jazz pianist, forced us to meet. Since then, it was a beautiful friendship. I've ever since called him Maestro, indeed. To perform beside him, next to him, in 2005 at the Opera House in Tel Aviv, Israel, has been the most important musical experience of my life. I'll treasure it all my life long. Buddy DeFranco is my father in jazz. Buddy DeFranco lives. I hope we can all take this. I just want to share one thing that was really important to me in meeting Buddy. It's something I really look forward to. Every year we would go out to dinner at the Keep after the final concert. I know Barb would be there, and David and Joyce and many folks. And Buddy would regale us with the most amazing stories of his years, especially his years with Tommy Dorsey, and great stories of the jazz greats. And I look forward to that every year, and that's something that I always think about. And while this wonderful faculty quintet here, and Creighton James, who's on our voice faculty, sing to us Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now, arranged by Johan Eriksson on our faculty and part of our jazz faculty. I hope you'll all take the opportunity to reflect on how Buddy touched your lives. So here we go.
Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way. Now they only block the sun. They rain and they snow on everyone. So many things I could have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds' illusions I recall. I sand dunes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way that I feel as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave them laughing when you go, and if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds, I've looked at life that way. Oh, but now old friends are acting strange. They shake their heads, they say that I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living every day. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life at all.
my friends, that was Maggie Schubert, Jennifer Kavanaugh, Chris Kirkpatrick, Johan Erickson, and Maxine Ramey, and of course, Creighton James. I'd like to ask a couple of folks to come up and say a few words about Buddy. Chuck Kempner. Chuck is a neighbor, I guess, or former neighbor in Whitefish, and I'd like to ask him to come up and say a few words. And at the same time, and you can sit here, and after Chuck is Malcolm Harris, who's publisher of a biography on Buddy, and love to have those two come and talk, and thank you for sharing your memories of Buddy.
Sure, why not? I hope you can hear me okay. One of the things that hasn't got stronger in my life is my voice. I've known Buddy, I've known of Buddy for a long, long time. Back in the 40s and 50s, there was a disc jockey called Jazzbo Collins, Al Collins, and he played all the really good stuff. And my friends and I listened to it. In fact, I bought a wire recorder. Most of you aren't old enough to know what a wire recorder is. And I was recording this stuff. And I actually, if I were to dig up that wire recorder from the trash from about 40 years ago, I would find that there was some Buddy DeFranco stuff on there. And then the rock and roll era came in, and somehow people drifted away from bebop and jazz into that noise, but I was one of them that didn't, and most of my friends didn't, and so that was the music I loved because it was innovative, it was progressive, it was just something that you didn't hear all the time, and then many years later, when we lived in Whitefish, Montana, we lived next door to Pete and Michelle Hand. And Pete and Michelle are in the audience today, which I'm happy to see. And they had some guests over one night, and Michelle called and said, "We got some guests over here, having a beer or whatever they were doing, and would you like to come over?" Sure. So we went over, and we were fortunate enough to be introduced to Buddy and Joyce DeFranco. And both of them, both Joyce and Buddy, are really easy people to love. And I think that we fell in love with them that day. And so over the years, they lived in Florida part of the year, as most of you know, Whitefish the other part of the year. And whenever they would come to Whitefish, we would get together and talk and visit and have fun. And what not everybody knows is that Buddy DeFranco was a great musician, but he was also a great storyteller. And he would tell stories of the years that they traveled on the bus and all the funny things. And I just loved, I could sit for hours and listen to Buddy tell those stories. And it seemed like he never told the same one twice, so he must have had a lot of stories. Joyce probably heard him a lot, but he had a lot of stories. And things that happened with big names like Ella Fitzgerald and Duke Ellington and all these things, and you think, geez, but the main thing I can say about Buddy was I often wondered, how can anybody that great be so nice And he was absolutely the nicest person I've ever met. You know, most people that are as famous as he was are, you know, what they are, and not Buddy. But anyway, I have to say, thank God for YouTube, and thank God for the internet, because I can still go in there and see Buddy perform. And so, you know, when people get down, they take dope or something, yeah. And when I get down, all I have to do is watch Buddy DeFranco and Terry Gibbs Quintet play Flying Home. And that brings me back to life. We all miss him, we'll all love him, and I'm really pleased to be here to express my feelings.
Good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure and an honor for me to be here. Buddy was one of my heroes on many levels, and I really enjoyed the tribute last night with the music and again today. My parents were great fans of Benny Goodman, and at age 7, they bought me a clarinet and started me on some lessons, and I got very interested in it. But by the time I was 11 years old, I was able to sort of explore other musical options. And one day I went to the record store in a small town in California where I grew up. And the store was owned by probably the only guy in town who knew anything about modern jazz. And he saw me over going through the bin of the new albums that had just come in. And I think I had yet another Benny Goodman album in my hand. And he said, "Have you heard of Buddy DeFranco?" And I said, no, I hadn't. I was only 11 years old at the time, and my horizons in the musical world were pretty narrow. And he said, well, I want you to listen to something. And if you remember in those days, this is in the early 50s, the record stores had listening booths where you could take the record in there and play it before you bought it. And so he put down the album that he wanted to show me, which was Buddy DeFranco meets the Oscar Peterson Quartet. And all these great players, it was Oscar Peterson, Ray Brown, Herb Ellis, and of course Buddy. And he put the needle down on the record on the first song on the side of the album, and the tune was Love for Sale. And I think about 10 bars into that recording, I realized that there was a whole new world for clarinet players to listen to, and that there was a lot more interesting things to do on the clarinet than to emulate Benny Goodman. And I think I have to disagree with Terry Gibbs' opinion that there were 3 great jazz clarinetists of that period. I think Buddy was head and shoulders above both of them. Not everybody agrees with that, but I certainly discovered Buddy all of a sudden, and it was a great revelation. I still have that record. I bought it that day, and I play it from time to time. And I think I've purchased every album every recording that Buddy ever did. But it was a long time before I actually got to meet Buddy. I lived in Seattle, and in 1981, he came to the International Clarinet Society conference to perform and to teach. And I was excited that I was going to get to hear him for the first time. And Bill Smith, who's another great jazz clarinetist who lives in Seattle, called me up one day and he said, Mal, Buddy's coming to town, and would you be willing to serve as Buddy's chauffeur and guide while he's here, you know, pick him up at the hotel, take him to the concert, and just hang out with him for a couple of days. Would you mind doing that? And I said, mind? You got to be kidding. This is a great opportunity for me to meet one of my heroes. And so I was able to hang out with Buddy for 3 days and did that many times in thereafter. But that was the first time that I got to hear him play, and the actual moment when I got to hear him play in person was a rehearsal done in a small rehearsal room at the University of Washington. And the band that he was going to play with that night was there to rehearse a few tunes and decide what their program was going to be. And I got to sit in this tiny room. We were like being in a telephone booth or something. And Buddy says, well, what are we going to play? And the other musicians, most of them were young players from the university, sort of looked at each other and didn't have any ideas. And Buddy said, well, how about we do Love for Sale? The same song I had first heard him on recording, I got to hear him play in person, and to sit 3 or 4 feet from him and to hear the sound of that horn and to see the dazzling technique that he had was just another revelation for me. And that experience has been repeated year after year, every time that I've heard him play. And then I had the opportunity to continue doing that over the years. Whenever he came to Seattle or anywhere in the Northwest, I would make it a point to go hear his concert, to have dinner with him or do whatever, and in the process got to meet Joyce, who was another revelation, a wonderful lady who's done so much for Buddy's career and has become great friends with me as well. And then 15 years ago, I heard that there was somebody who had written a biography of Buddy, a clarinetist in France named Fabrice Samarchi. And he was looking for somebody to publish the book. Couldn't find anybody who was interested in it. Well, I sent him an email saying I might be interested, and I was a little skeptical that somebody in France would be able to know all the details of Buddy's life. But a week later, this huge manuscript arrived in the mail, along with dozens and dozens of photographs. And even though it was all in French, I realized that this was something that had to be published. And that turned into about a 2-year labor of love where I helped him finish the book, locate photographs, learn much more than I ever thought I would learn about Buddy's life, and to bring that project to a conclusion. It was an immensely satisfying project for me to produce a biography of somebody who had been my hero for so long. And in the process, I realized what a very interesting and diverse life Buddy had had, and that he achieved a lot against some very high odds. He grew up in a very poor family. His father was a blind piano tuner in the depths of the Depression in South Philadelphia, which then and now was a pretty tough neighborhood. But he rose above that all through his real devotion and his dedication and his discipline to the music that he wanted to play. And that is sort of the theme through his whole life, and it's a theme that I think every musician should pay attention to. And let's face it, a lot of people in the jazz world during that same period did not have that kind of discipline and devotion, and many of them ended their lives in real train wrecks due to alcohol, drugs, whatever. But Buddy never went down that path, and Buddy remained true to his instrument, the clarinet, which fell out of favor during much of this period of time. My theory about that is that he was just so damn good at it that he scared everybody else away. and other people believe that too. But, pardon? Well, yeah, there are a few, but none of them came close. And Ron's come awfully close, I'll have to say that. So anyway, I just have a lot of fondness for Buddy and for Joyce, and it was a pleasure for me to be here today. And Buddy, we know you're here too, and we want to thank you for your devotion to a lifetime of great artistry, and for being such a wonderful gentleman and such a great friend to all of us. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Malcolm. It was beautiful. And thank you, Chuck, as well. Thank you for sharing. I want to share this last tribute to you, with you, comes from our own David Morganroth, who was incredibly close to Buddy and played for many years with him here at the Jazz Festival. We in Missoula have been so fortunate over the last years to revel, in the presence of a true jazz giant, Buddy DeFranco. Towering virtuoso and consummate gentleman, allowed us to witness what great talent coupled with discipline, focus, and extraordinary humility can offer humanity. Rest in peace, Buddy. We'll never forget you. Before I invite our last speaker to come forward, I want to acknowledge some folks who really went out of their way to make this celebration a special event. I want to thank Barb Kustra, thank you Barb, Christian Goldstag, Maxine Ramey, Rob Tapper. I want to thank Lucas Mazenko there. I also want to thank the Bitterroot Flower Shop for giving us, donating us beautiful flowers here. And also we want to acknowledge James Todd for this tremendous portrait of Buddy DeFranco that you see on the stage. At this time, I'd like to introduce Joyce DeFranco to come and speak to us. Thank you, Joyce, for everything. And let's all give Joyce a hand as she comes forward.
I'm not a very accomplished or practiced public speaker, but I did want to say thank you, each and every one of you, for being here today and being a part of such an extraordinary life and showing me your love and the joy of knowing Buddy, because each of you did. And you too. He had a long and productive life, and one that was filled with music, one that I was very privileged to share for 45 years. And I know it touched each one of us here in some way, as well as so many people around the world. I just want to leave you with a beautifully poignant line that was especially dear to Buddy and I, and that we quoted to each other and listened to many times through the years. And it's one that you know. I know all of you've heard of it. It's from Gordon Jenkins. This is all I ask. And let the music play as long as there's a song to sing. And I will be much younger than spring. Thank you all for coming and for being here today.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you so much. I want to invite Joyce and the School of Music, the University of Montana, would all like to invite you to the Rotunda, the Denison Theater, for some refreshments and for an opportunity to visit with each other and tell a few stories. Remember Buddy just a little longer, some great memories. And thank you for coming today. It's very special for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.